And it says we are live again.
Oh, jolly good.
Splendid, children.
Splendid, yes.
Here we all are. And just good morning, everybody everywhere. And hope everybody's doing well, surviving the summer, because I know it's very, very, very hot in some places, which is why, we need to wet our whistle. Madam's drinking tea this morning, so be afraid, be very afraid. Cheers.
Yeah.
We are super thrilled about today's guest, Mike Gormley. He is a true force in the music industry since over 40 years. Born in Ottawa, Canada, Mike began his career as a teenage music journalist and quickly rose through the ranks to become a key figure at Mercury Records, where he had a very interesting mailroom sort of intern young man for one summer. We'll get to that. And then later A&M Records, where he served as the VP of publicity and worked with legendary acts like The Police, Supertramp, and Herb Alpert. Mike played a critical role in launching the careers of Danny Elfman, the Bangles, Rod Stewart, and helped bring Rush, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Kraftwerk, and the New York Dolls to global attention. He later co-founded the management firm LAPD, Los Angeles Personal Development, with Miles Copeland, where he then convinced Danny Elfman to score Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which launched Elfman's film composing legacy. Mike also managed Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Jeff "Skunk" Baxter, Angelique Kidjo, and even Broadway's Paige O'Hara, the voice of Belle in Beauty and the Beast. He co-founded Wildcat Records, taught at UCLA Extension, and now, as a podcaster, now hosts The Mike Gormley Show, which is a must-listen. You have to check that out. He's a longtime advocate for musicians, and he served on several industry boards and continues to shape the world of music behind the scenes. Welcome to the one and only Mr. Mike Gormley. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Mike. Good morning.
How are you two doing and everybody else watching?
Great, thank you.
We are doing great.
Good.
So thanks for taking the time, because I know with just reading off that resume, we can all guess how busy you must be.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Now,
I know you're mother-daughter, but you look like twins.
Oh,
thank you.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Where do I send the check? Martin said the horror twins. Yeah.
Thanks, Martin. Now, Mike, you started as a journalist at 18, a music journalist. What first drew you to writing about music, and what were some of your most memorable early interviews?
It's a kind of a funny story. It was in the 60s, and I was living in the Bay Area. I was going to school, and I went to a show at the Cow Palace. And I don't remember everybody who was on it, but I remember the Beau Brummels and I think Dionne Warwick and the Supremes. And, it was one of those shows with a bunch of people. And there was a huge orchestra with 2 drummers and Phil Spector conducting.
Oh, boy.
And I grew up in Ottawa. There was a morning newspaper there called the Ottawa Journal. And there was a fellow there named Sandy Gardner who had a once a week page for probably called it something like for teens or something like that, in those days. So I did a story on this, and he printed it. He didn't even know me. I just sent it in cold.
Great.
He printed it, and he asked for more. And because it was the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s, there were a lot of bands coming through or living there. So I interviewed Buffalo Springfield and the Association and Love, and I don't know, the Everly Brothers, the list goes on, because I was not in the city itself. I was out in an area in Hayward in the East Bay.
Sure.
And there was a small club there. So the bands that came through for the Fillmore would do the Fillmore on Friday or Saturday, and they do this small club on Saturday or Friday, whichever worked out. And in those days, there was no security. I just knock on the dressing room door and say, I'm from the Ottawa Journal. I'd like to talk to you. Like they knew what the Ottawa Journal was. And they always said, come on in. And so I had some great interviews with the Beau Brummels, a lot of great bands, Paul Butterfield.
Gosh, do you have access to any of those clippings still?
I have tons of them.
You do?
I had a really good friend took all my clippings and put them in 4 big folders. And because I went from the Ottawa Journal eventually to the Detroit Free Press, the morning newspaper there. And that was a few years of clippings, so a lot of stuff piled up.
Well, that should go in your forthcoming book.
Yes, right. That one.
You heard it here.
You heard it here
You've
first.
got to do it now.
We're spilling the tea. Mike is working on a book.
For people watching, I was given a little speech just before we came on about how I should have a book. So I got to do it now or I'm in trouble.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you shall get a spanking, you see.
Oh, we might enjoy that.
You never know. those Canadians, you know.
No.
Not to get trusted. You do know how you spell Canada, don't you, Mike?
Canada.
A.
Hey.
You walked right into that one. Indeed. So you worked after your sort of journalistic career, or during the same time, you worked for both Mercury Records and A&M during some of their most influential eras. But none of the artists have gone that you signed actually have gone on to be as famous as your one summer mailroom boy for a summer gig night. Tell us how that came about, because everyone's going to flip their wigs.
I gotta say that I don't remember him, and I think I had left for A&M before he was there. But I've been reminded by friends that there was a fellow in the mailroom at Mercury Records. He was a summer replacement for the regular guy, and he's now Pope.
His name was Bob Prevost, the mail boy.
Bob the mailman.
You're the only person I know who can say you had the Pope for a mailroom boy.
Yeah, amazing. And I've racked my brain, but I looked at the dates, and I think I had left for A&M in California by the time he had that summer. So
well, let's say you hadn't.
let's say he was a good buddy, and we're going to go hang out someday.
That's right. Yeah.
Go to the White Sox game and
Right.
Go and drink all the wine.
drink whatever Popes drink.
Yeah, whatever they drink.
That is fantastic. Oh boy. So speaking of acts and things you actually launched and signed, and had a question there.
Yeah, you were instrumental in signing acts like the Bangles, Danny Elfman, and the Police. What qualities did you see in those artists that convinced you they would succeed?
Well, I didn't sign the Police, just to be clear. They were signed in A&M England, and then, of course, came over. But I was involved from the very early days, including calling Miles. My first phone call to Miles was to tell him to get out of those leather jackets, because at that time, the whole some level of punk thing was going on, and radio was not reacting well to it. So I said, just don't let them look like punks, and that was my first suggestion, and we went on to work together quite a bit, and then Miles and I became partners in LAPD, because it's at LAPD he had IRS records, his brother had FBI booking agency, and above that were the police.
And their father was in the CIA, right?
And that's where the real beginning was. Yes, their father was a spy.
Wow.
Mr. Copeland Senior was a spook, so. Hence IRS, FBI, and LAPD. I love it.
Yeah.
That was branding before we called it branding, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I guess so, yeah. That was bright guys, those Copeland boys.
Oh, yes. No, I had lunch with one of them recently with the String Revolution with Janet Robin and Marcus. And they know their stuff, that's for sure. But the Bangles, let's go rewind. One of my favorite bands, not just because they were girls, but just so bright and happy and musical and wonderful. How did you come across them?
Well, once again, Miles called me up and he said, I saw this band, go see them, please. And he was in London. One of the reasons LAPD existed was that the police were blowing up and they were so busy. But Miles had signed Oingo Boingo and Wall of Voodoo in the West Coast, and he just couldn't pay attention. And so he came to me and we made a deal. And then after that, we found the Bangles. And he saw them, and I went to see them once. Wasn't knocked out. Thought the harmonies were, their singing was incredible. He said, can you go back and look at them again? So I did, and I got it. So I had lunch with them one day, and evidently they thought we were meeting so I would sign them to Faulty Products, which was a little label.
Faulty Products.
Faulty Products was it was kind of part of IRS, but it was his own entity.
Uh-huh.
And no, I wasn't signing the Faulty Products. I was asking if they wanted us as managers. So they were kind of surprised by that, pleasantly. And we went from there. It took a few years, but we're always climbing up in those at that time. It was exciting all the way down the line. And then we got signed by Columbia Records, and it really got going then. But they were already being written up in magazines and already had played a lot of dates and so on. So I loved going to their concerts, their vocals.
Just
the story that they were in the studio. They were once asked to sing a Mamas and Papas song, not Monday maybe. And they did, because they were nice, and they said, "Oh, sure." And then they asked, "Why did you have us do that?" And just to hear you do it, just to hear your vocals on that song.
Wow!
Incredible.
Wow!
God, and all the talk about they couldn't play their instruments was not true. They played live, and they played in the studio, and wrote their own songs. So I was always very proud of starting with them at such a beginning level and going to millions of records sold and all that happened. Was kind of a dream of my part, being able to do that with some artists, and we got it done.
And it's great when you are also not just the manager but a fan, right? You can actually, it's not like a drag to go to work to sit through one of the concerts.
No, not at all. The band, most of the 80s, I worked with those three bands: Boingo Boingo, Wall of Voodoo, and the Bangles. And very different songs, very different music. But
I know, but every day would be a great day at the office. I mean, it's not like I've got to go listen to Aida opera again.
It wasn't all business. Elfman and I had a food fight once in my office.
Do tell.
I don't know, it just broke out. He was hanging around. He used to be able to go in my office at the time, which was on La Brea, in I guess that's Hollywood, right?
Right. Yes.
And for some reason, I had a window, and you could go out that window onto a roof next door.
Oh.
And bands seemed to like to do that, and I can picture Danny out there now trying to sneak up on me with some food of some sort. And I have a poster here of Pierre Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, with food on it. I should have had Elfman sign it, right? But
now let's talk about Danny Elfman. How did you convince him to score Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Because eventually that sort of led to a massive career for him, didn't it?
No, it started for sure. He, because of Boingo Boingo and Tim Burton and Paul Rubens, Pee-wee, were fans of Boingo Boingo. They came up with the idea of maybe he would score the movie. And so they called me, and we set it up, and Danny and I went over to Warner Brothers lot and met with them, and he got the gig. That was a Friday night. Saturday, he called me up and said, "You got to get me out of this. I don't know how this works." You got to. I said, "Well, give me till Monday so I can find out how things work," because we didn't know the movie world. We didn't know the ins and outs. Sure. And on Monday, I found out that Steve Bartek from Oingo Boingo, tremendous musician, could work with Danny because they worked together in Oingo Boingo. That made him more comfortable. And we found out about a thing called a music editor that we didn't know existed, but and there was a really fine one on that. So he said, "Okay, I'll give it a try," and he wrote this brilliant score.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
it's an amazing score. And we just, we did 4 more movies. Couldn't find an agent. Nobody wanted to take them on, so I ended up getting them for the first 4 movies. But then a really good agent came along, and it was good fun thereafter.
I mean, I think that's one of the hardest parts in Hollywood, isn't it? Is getting an agent or getting a manager, getting somebody with a Rolodex who believes in you, who's going to join the team.
Everybody turned them down. Everybody turned them down, and very frustrating. But we found a fellow that was like, I don't know how Danny met him, but he started his own agency basically with Danny. He was not an agent at the time. He was working, and he was a big fan of movie music and scores.
Okay.
And started working, and then he got. I think his agency became the biggest agency for composers.
It wasn't Gorfein Schwartz, was it?
No, it was. I'm gone blank. Richard.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, he's not really.
I remember Gorfein Schwartz in the 80s. They had a ton of composers, and that was really all they did was,
Well, they said no to Danny Elfman too, just so you'll know.
Good God. I mean, all those people must be kicking themselves now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess so. Eventually, at some point, they must have said, guess we missed that one.
Oops. Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Beatles were turned down, 9 times by some accounts, 14 by others before they got signed.
I knew they had been turned down. I didn't know it was 9 times.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, that's Danny and the Beatles. A very good lesson for anybody who's looking at this career is
That's right.
If you're persistent and you're good at what you do, it's going to click at some point.
Yeah. No, you'll find the universe will find the right match for you. We're great believers over here in the universe. Just it's waiting. It's got a lock and it's got some keys and it's just waiting to match them up.
I wish to hurry up and open some more.
I know.
I'm getting old. I got old.
95 and a half. She's still waiting for the universe.
My God, you're older than me.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's older than you.
I think I'm older than you too. So you've worked with both rock and pop legends, obviously, but you've also you had an interesting interlude career-wise into Broadway and film with talents like Paige O'Hara. How did you wind up? I mean, obviously you'd be in and out of New York, but Broadway is such a different world.
Yeah, it is. And she wanted to expand her career. She wanted to play Las Vegas, funny enough. And she was a tremendous person and a voice to die for. And so the first thing I did, I was not a Broadway person. I hardly listened to it. I hardly did anything. But there was a huge play. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But anyway, I found out somehow, evidently before the producers of the play, I found out that the lead actress was pregnant.
Oh, oops.
I think I found out before her husband. I'm not sure. But
oh, excuse me.
Found out,
Hold on.
or you found out?
I smell
it. Had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. I was just.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't there, Your Honor. It wasn't me.
So I called up
Shaggy.
the people involved and said, and they would know Paige. They would know who she is because of her past. And they said, yeah. So my first job was to put her on Broadway for 6 weeks. 6 weeks it was.
Wow.
And I can't remember the darn play. It was a huge play. It's a huge, and right. My memory's shot. That's but right. And then of course we went off to do other things, and then we did get her into Las Vegas.
Yes.
She was at the Frontier, and she was.
Wow.
She was the only one where children were allowed into their show in Las Vegas.
Interesting.
Because of her
Beauty and the Beast.
Belle. She was Belle in Beauty and the Beast. And
right.
Yeah.
Belle even looked like her, and it was all, and she acted the role as well as sang the role.
Yeah.
So when she played, particularly on Saturday afternoon, I think it was, there'd be a lot of kids in the audience, and she would sing. And she would do a regular show, but of course it included some of the Belle material.
Well, which Vegas would love, because they went through a period, didn't they, in the 80s and 90s, where they were trying to get away from that, not 3 times and ask for Joe kind of thing. And
well, they
were trying to be family friendly, weren't they?
Yeah, I won't name names, but when she was going to Las Vegas and she was going to sing some music from a play, somebody at Disney sent us a letter saying under no circumstances can you do that song in Las Vegas?
Why? You can do any song
Just
anywhere.
the way Las Vegas was perceived at the time,
Oh, I see.
and that was not a Disney idea.
Wow.
Now it is Disney, but then it was
Wow.
anyway. I had the Paige write a note to the president of, or chairman or whatever his title was, the top guy at Disney, and he loved her.
Yeah.
And I said, handwrite it. We'd like to do this song. Boom, taken care of. It was covered.
So legally speaking, if the venue is ASCAP and BMI licensed, anybody can sing anything under the First Amendment, can't they?
Oh, it wasn't like they were. It wasn't like we'll have you arrested or sue you or anything. It was just.
Please don't do this.
Disapproval.
We just don't want that music associated with Las Vegas.
Okay.
And of course, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful, and it worked out very, very well. So she was. I think she was there for at least 2 years.
Golly.
And she still lives in Las Vegas. So
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a captivating place. When that whole switchover was going on, we were invited as a small minority woman-owned agency to pitch for the rebranding. And so we came up with this. Joe Camel was a big character at the time. Remember selling Camel cigarettes?
Mm-hmm.
He had this crazy camel. So we came up with Joe Vegas, and we did a little flash movie and everything. And it was like, it's not what, but who you know, knock 3 times and ask for Joe. And the speakeasy door opens, and there's a typical Vegas-looking guy there with a fedora and everything.
Uh-huh.
And my tagline that I pitched them, that they said no thank you, was "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas."
Mm-hmm.
And they turned it down. We never got a dime.
Oh.
3 months later, we're driving up I-15. Guess what I see on a billboard?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yes,
Elizabeth from back east from Philadelphia, she's saying she's driving whilst listening to us, and "Walk Like an Egyptian" is playing on the radio.
Oh.
Well done. Very good. It's our backup vocals.
There you go. That's the universe doing its thing.
Yeah.
So Diana's asking, did you ever hang out or spend any time in the West Village in New York? Any?
No, I didn't.
Stories of
I didn't. The A&M Records. I'm sorry. Mercury Records was headquartered in Chicago.
Right.
And so I didn't ever live in New York. It's because I was taking care of that. They decided at one point to move to New York, and first they wanted me to move to Hamburg, Germany, which was the world headquarters. Then they decided they wanted me to move to New York, and it was one of those corporate things, back and forth. I almost sold my house out from under me, and I didn't, but fortunately. And but right in the middle of all that turmoil, A&M called and said, "You want to come out here?" And I said, "Yes."
Yes, Queen.
I'm going with you. So,
I'm on the next bus.
So I headed for Los Angeles, and with a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old, and we moved out from Chicago, and I loved Chicago. Sorry to leave, but I had to get to where the work was. So we got to A&M, and very shortly after, the police came along, and had a great time working with them, but many others as well, many other artists.
A&M was an incredible label, really, wasn't it? When you think of what Herb and Jerry were able to pull together as artists, and the learning curve of the business that they must have had to go through.
Well, it's working there was, people describe it as being in a fraternity or something. It was all, and that continues, by the way, on Facebook or whatever there might be. Something happens to somebody or something regarding A&M, and boom, you get messages from all over the country, if not the world. And they had, in honor of Jerry Moss, who passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It must be a year and a half ago. They had in honor of him, had an evening, and they gave us the lot for a Saturday evening to go. And most of us hadn't been there in 30 years or whatever. Right. It was total magic. It was amazing to be back in there, and because it's it's one of those acclaimed places that the city says you're not allowed to touch.
Right.
It was the same as when we were there, so it was very emotional, and all the people came in from Japan and England and this party,
like a family reunion kind of.
It really was very much like that.
Yeah,
very much.
that's nice.
That's
I saw people I hadn't seen in years, and it was like no time had passed. We sat down at tables and started chatting. It was like,
wow.
just picked up where we left off.
George Bonnell from Strawberry Alarm Clock says, "Hello, Mike."
Hello, George. How you doing out there? Great band.
Absolutely a great band. We had George on last year sometime. It was a great show. Really fun.
Yeah.
But you've not only sort of sat on the business side of things, right? You've also done.
Yeah, as a music supervisor, Mike, you work with film and TV. Now, I was wondering what goes into matching the right music to a scene. And do you have a favorite moment from that part of your career?
It's very interesting how it's done. I really only did it for a few movies and a couple of TV shows because it was very time consuming.
Yeah.
And at that time, the Beatles, I wish, the Bangles were number one, and just things were going crazy. But right. I did a few. We did Adventures in Babysitting, if you remember that film.
Oh yeah.
That was a last minute deal where evidently whoever was doing music supervision somehow didn't satisfy the producers, so they called us, and in a very short time we put a soundtrack together. In a matter of weeks, we put it together.
Wow.
And so there are moments like that. I learned a lot about the film industry, and it was I enjoyed it. I just couldn't hang in there.
Right. It's a calling. I mean, our friend Barry Coffing in Houston has musicsupervisor.com.
Yeah.
And, he's done 30 years in tons of films. And my ex-husband, Paul Antonelli, is the music supervisor. He's got 7 Emmys for it. He's for daytime soaps and television of all stripes.
Yeah.
And it is an absolute heads down, don't bother me, full-time job. And I think what the public doesn't necessarily, I mean, our viewers do because they're real musical people, but doesn't really understand is not only, so you, as a music supervisor, you find a piece of music that fits, then you take it to the director falls in love with it, then you got to go to the copyright holder, the person.
Then you've got to go to the producer. Then you go to you get the director interested, or maybe you go to the producers first. And nowadays there's often 4 or 5 producers.
Oh.
You've got a song you think is going to fit that scene, and you think it's great.
Yeah.
Let's say the director says, "I love it." You think you're in until a couple of producers say, "No, I don't like it." So it's that kind of behind the scenes thing that you have to put together. The ones I worked on were pretty fortunate. Everybody seemed to like what we're doing and cooperated, and
but that's a whole nother can of worms, isn't it? If everybody says yes, then you have to go figure out who owns the master rights to the recording, the actual noise, the sound.
To find out who owns the song and who owns the publishing, and
who owns the noise.
Owns the record, as you know.
Yeah.
Sync
Right.
and master is called, and the master is the record that you have at home. It's the master, and the sync is the publishing side. And then you got to work out a deal with both of those entities.
Right. And then if you've got 20 songs in a movie, then hopefully you get favored nations and you're not paying different prices to different people because they all talk, right?
Well, favored nations can be rough if you get a big name and they get a lot of money.
That's true too. Yeah. If you get a marquee star and you're paying them $50,000 for the track, then everybody else gets $50,000, even if they're, Joe Blow and the nobodies from Podunk, Iowa, right?
But I still enjoy I know a lot of the supervisors, and there are functions and so on. It's great just to, a lot of them that I knew back then had made their life this, and they're beautiful at it. And somehow they can handle
the stress.
5 movies and 10 TV shows at the same time. I don't know.
Can you imagine? No.
Wow.
I assume they have a staff, but
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's very crazy.
How did winding back a little bit, how did your transition, because you've done so many things in the music industry, how did you transition from record executive to artist manager? Was that just happenstance because of your relationship with Miles? And
it was directly my relationship with Miles. He walked into my office one day and said, "You want to get out of here?" I went, "What?" And he had, as I said, signed Oingo Boingo and Wall of Voodoo in the States.
Right.
But the police, my God, when things broke open, insanity, kind of organized insanity, but time consuming like crazy. And so he needed somebody to kind of run the office while he went bouncing around the world with the boys. Right. And it was good fun, and it was an honor to work with him.
I bet.
At that time, he was probably the biggest manager in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was, and the band was great. Those guys were great to work with. So it was sort of like being part of the family. And I had worked with them, but once we established LAPD, I wasn't working with them that much anymore because I was working on our stuff. But we maintained, I was always with them somewhere. So I wanted to. You talk about books. If I'd known it wasn't that a lot difficult. Miles Copeland, Ian Copeland, and Stewart Copeland, drummer, manager, and agent. I thought a book of those three brothers would have been amazing because they were. Stewart's going to be on my podcast in a few weeks, and it just the stories of they're brilliant guys.
Oh yeah,
brilliant guys. And they grew up basically in Beirut, and amazing stories. So,
well, maybe it's not too late. Ask him. I'll help you.
Well, unfortunately, Ian left us almost 20 years ago, but
I know.
But it still could be a
story. No kidding.
Oh, absolutely.
Hands up in the chat if you'd buy a book about the Copeland brothers. I bet everybody would.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all about inspiring people, isn't it? And paying it forward. Which you've also done.
Yeah, well, I wondered, Mike, what inspired you to teach what was it called, the Insider's Guide to Music Management at UCLA? And what is one inspiring lesson everybody, every manager should learn very early?
I just took the idea to the people at UCLA and they liked it. It sounds simple, and it was kind of simple. But my first night, first off, I didn't have a great high school or college career. I didn't like doing either one of them. So I didn't have brilliant grades, and I was always getting into trouble and stuff like that. But I made it. I made it through. Yeah, right there you are.
Yeah.
Then what was I going to say?
UCLA.
Yeah.
How
I just got the idea. So here I am, first night in front of students. I put together, it was a 2.5 hour thing. And I had notes in front of me. In 20 minutes, I covered everything.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, and I figured out very quickly that there's always one or two in a class who want to talk about it. So I would pick on them and let them talk. But after the first class, I wanted to write to all my high school teachers and my professors and write and just apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't know what you were going through.
Now you know.
Yeah, right. And I wasn't making their life any easier. So I didn't stay in touch with any of them, so I couldn't write that. But I wanted to just say, okay, I understand now. And then it was great. And it was wonderful and it grew. That's another thing that just grew to the point where I couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
It started out on a Wednesday night, and then they wanted to expand it. Huge class too. It wasn't any little classroom. It was one of those big college rooms.
Wow.
And it went on, and I just couldn't keep up with that as well. I wish I had somehow, because that would have been pretty cool. But
yeah, I mean, but UCLA Extension does some incredible stuff. I've been lucky enough to speak about building fan clubs and permission-based marketing and all of that stuff. Gosh, 20 odd years hence, in Dina LaPolt's class at UCLA Extension. She's a kick-ass lawyer, represented the estate of Tupac Shakur amongst many other people. And she would invite me in, and it's a really great feeling, isn't it, to be not just on such a Tony campus, but have the experience of being able to share your knowledge and inspiration and pitfalls with the next generation.
It was quite amazing. And we had one fellow in the class was working at Disney during the time of God, I've got names in my head.
You haven't had enough coffee, that's all.
Yeah, that's the problem. Well, I'm sorry, but anyway, he couldn't make class one night because he had to go to a gold record party.
Oh.
So there's some people who really were established, and then there was people who were absolutely
wow,
new, and it was interesting that way.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's always inspirational when you see these fresh faces in the front row going, oh, sucking up all this knowledge. It's really.
But they're looking at you.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to know what you're talking about. You're supposed to have brilliant ideas. And they're all looking at you. It's like being on stage, except,
sure.
I didn't have a rehearsal. It was just.
That's right. No sound check for you.
Yeah, exactly. I got used to it after a while, but it was a bit nerve-wracking for a while.
Oh,
it was so different. So not only was it different, but here I am teaching when I didn't even like school that much. But,
right.
Yeah. Know the feeling. Yeah.
So
this class was great, though. It was really very interesting class, and I think it's still going on. I'm not sure.
Really? Wow.
Elizabeth's asking, so bottom line, is it who you know in the entertainment business, or is it the education that gets you into the business today? Or is it a combination of both?
Both, I would think.
It's a combination of both, but you got to know somebody. You got to know somebody who's going to listen to what you have to say. I mean, there are other avenues, of course, I ended up in the music industry from being a journalist because a great guy named Ron Oberman, who was head of publicity for Mercury Records at the time, flew into Detroit and said, we just went to lunch. I thought he was, as a PR guy, and I'm a journalist, I thought he was just taking me out to lunch to do the old hustle, right?
Right.
And I said, that's fine, because they were working Rod Stewart, the fairly unknown Rod Stewart at that point.
Wow, Rod Stewart.
And no, he was offering me his job because he was going to Columbia Records.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, wait a minute, I've done a little bit of PR, but I'm not a PR guy. But he said, no, you'd be great at it. So I'm head of PR. I got people working for me who knew what they were doing much more than I did. I admit that. And I get in a room. So when you're a journalist, you're lucky if you've got a desk and a little cubicle.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
That kind of, you're all in one room. I went from that to a huge office in Chicago with 2 secretaries.
Good grief.
Had no idea. I just sat there going, what do I do now? I'll tell you what happened. I got a phone call from England. Now, I'm still, what am I at this point? I don't know, 24 or something like that. And I had never had an international call. I just hadn't had. It wasn't as common as it is now either.
No, cool.
I do get a call from England, and they say they didn't tell me who was on the phone. They just picked up and said hello, and it was really, again, in those days, sketchy as to whether you were going to. Yeah, right. A lot of static.
AT&T undersea cables.
Yeah. And this person was saying hi and give his name. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I said that about 3 times. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Who's this? And finally I heard, and I won't say the actual word, but it's Rod effing Stewart.
That figures.
Oh, hello, Rod. How are you?
That sounds
that was basically my first day. And he was just calling to welcome me to the label. It was very nice of him.
That is very nice. He's a jolly nice chap. Was a good friend of Mike McCartney, my other stepbrother.
Yeah.
And used to come to, when I was growing up, used to come to the house quite a bit and, hang out with all of them. But he'd always take his cut and saucer and his knife and fork and plate to the sink and say thank you and please. And, if he stayed the night in the guest room, he'd make his bed. And, he was very, very pedestrian, very well brought up, our Rod.
Yeah, he was.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, he's
still rocking, isn't he?
Oh, he's still rocking it.
Yeah.
He's still going. He's supposedly not feeling well these days and had to cancel some dates, which he doesn't like to do. But right. I think he's going back into Las Vegas at some point.
Well, sometimes
he is winding down touring. I know they're all. You're not winding down playing live, but you're winding down doing those grueling tours.
Yeah, and Ange isn't emceeing at Chippendales anymore. So.
No, I've given that up. Yeah.
What? You emceed at Chippendales?
Yeah, oh, it's not.
Don't do that to me. I'm gullible.
Well, you're from north of the border, mate.
Yeah. Now listen, you've served on boards for like Folk Alliance, AFTRA, Armory of Harmony.
Mhm.
How important is advocacy and giving back to the music community as far as you're concerned?
Oh, it's amazing being on the board at the Folk Alliance. And again, I'm not necessarily a folkie, you know. I was more a rock and roll guy, but Dan Navarro, who was or still is a folkie to some degree, but he also wrote "We Belong" for Pat Benatar, co-wrote it, so he wasn't all folky.
Right.
And he had become president, and he called me up, and evidently the president could bring somebody in who wasn't elected to the board, and he called me up and said, "You're on the board."
Oh.
Okay. So I did that for a few years, and it was tremendous. I miss it, actually. I just met some great artists and heard great music, and you know, walked the halls of, because they go in, they take over a couple of floors of a hotel, and it was just music all
coming out of every door,
all day, all night. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 a.m, there'd be a guy in the corner playing a fiddle. I mean, it was just going on. So anyway, it was beautiful. The Armory of Harmony got stalled by the pandemic, but is getting going again.
I should reach out to Richard Gibbs.
Yeah, I just talked to him before we got on.
Oh, good.
Armory of Harmony is the short explanation is they would take gun metal, and they melt this stuff down when they get guns from people and they pile up. The police annually
do these buybacks.
A gun sale, or they melt them all down. And Richard Gibbs, who was with Oingo Boingo originally and then became a great composer, he just thought must be a better way to do this. So the idea was to get that melted material and turn it into musical instruments.
That's amazing.
Wonderful.
And then give those instruments to college programs and so on.
Wonderful idea. Yeah.
And it was rolling down the road, and we actually had our first instrument made, and we actually had really making progress. And then the pandemic came along, and
of course,
so now there's talk of getting it going again, because it's just a great idea.
Yeah, when we came out a couple of times to do the Composers Breakfast in Malibu, which, by the way, locals, that is on at the Dreamland, I guess it's called now. I still know it as Neil Young's old club at the end of Malibu Pier. Well, it's not at the end. It's on the land side of Malibu Pier.
Opposite,
But it's called Dreamland Aviator Nation now. And it's open to the public. Anybody can go. It starts at 9:00 every Monday morning. It's $30 to get in, hear a speech, see a breakfast, have a breakfast. Fantastic buffet breakfast.
It's composer's breakfast, but you don't really have to be a composer to go. You just
no. Anybody who's a real, music industry person.
He's always the guest. He's always got great guests.
Yeah, he's got Louise Goffin, I think, and can't remember.
Diane Warren was out there a couple of years ago or a year ago. Diane Warren and I don't know a list of them because he knows everybody.
He's got Carole King's daughter Louise Goffin next Monday with Brady Jenner's brother. Yeah, he's got a Jenner and a Goffin out there next week, and they've done so much for the community. And Richard's son is part of the Malibu volunteer firefighter. He started that volunteer firefighter situation. So check out Armory of Harmony. I think it's .org, and see how you can get involved. Because the police, as you say, Mike, they buy back all of these guns. Well, what? They're all stockpiled in a warehouse somewhere.
They put them on sale, and the guy who they took it from could come in and buy it back.
Exactly. So let's make a trombone, shall we? Right.
And of course, not instruments aren't all metal. There are wood parts and so on, but at least the metal parts could be put together. It was great. It's great. I hope it happens more.
That is great. So fast forwarding to the future now. So tell us about the Mike Gormley Show, your podcast, who you've had on, what the conversation. How did you get started into podcasting?
A fellow named Jeremiah Higgins out of Santa Barbara,
Who's great.
good guy, approached me about doing it just because, I guess, of stories like we've been talking about.
Right.
And you know, I hadn't for a while, but I knew how to interview. I've been doing that as a journalist for a long time, since I was 18 or so.
Oh.
And so it worked, and he put it together, and you know, as I say, a couple of weeks, Stewart Copeland's coming on, and
Great.
Diane Warner will be on eventually, and just a lot of, and it's kind of behind the scenes of music.
Yeah.
So I spoke not too long ago with Paul Rappaport, who was the head of was with the promotion department at Columbia Records for like 33 years. Actually, it was 33 and a third years.
Oh, that's funny.
Lovely.
But he had a great book out, and has a great book out, and he came on and told great stories. And so it's not just musicians or, let's say, celebrities on there. There's a lot of people on there who are celebrities in their own field, but may not be public. But you can learn a lot, but you're also entertained. It's great stories.
Right.
I've had, you know, Vicky from the Bangles was on a couple of months ago.
Oh, great.
And you know, just
Must have missed that
either
one.
folks I know or so folks I meet, and
Yep.
come on and usually
Well,
they say
I'm
yes.
a fan and a regular listener, so I'll have to go back and look for the Vicky one, because I'm a huge Bangles fan as well.
That
so
was the first time I'd seen Vicky in 20 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
We had talked once, but that was the first time I'd actually seen her. It was amazing that it was that long. Again, it was like, hi, how you doing? No time had gone by.
It flies by.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Where can people find you, Mike, to find out all about you?
They can't find me. I hide.
he's
Oh, no,
LAPD,
come on.
remember?
Oh, I know.
No, there is a website, lapdev.com, which is, you know, short for LA Personal Development, and that's the main place to go. You can probably reach me through the show, which is listed on there. You know, just
All the podcasts.
when you go take a look at it, there's a little thing down there about where you can find me, and
Fantastic.
and I get some really interesting mail and information and so on. And another guy I'm having on very soon is John McEwen, who was
Oh God, yes.
Nitty Gritty Dirt Band back at.
We did his Grammy campaign a year ago.
Yeah, and
Great.
so he's in Portugal. He's going to call us from Portugal.
Oh, he moved to Portugal. He was in
He went
Carolina.
over, I don't know. He's there for something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, he'll be on in a couple of weeks.
He's funny. He's great.
Yeah, he is. He's a great musician and a lot of stories.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
a lot of stories. We have something called FYC Online for your consideration. It's a Grammy page digital marketing, product.
Yeah.
And we had so much fun working with his. He did an audio book.
Yes,
that we
right.
submitted, and it was an LA detective story, and it starts at Norm's on La Cienega at 3 a.m, and he's got this incredible speaking voice as well, And so if you haven't checked out John McEwen's audiobook, go look for it. It's a really good piece.
Yeah.
So good for you. No, he's awesome. He is absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. As most of our regular viewers know, and as I hipped you to before we went live here this morning, Madam here is known as the Limerick Lady. And so we have taken the liberty of...
Before you do that,
yes,
names and nice words have been popping up. So I just thank everybody who's been listening and had evidently really nice comments. And so
yeah,
I just want to thank those people before we...
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you are sitting comfortably, then we will begin.
Okay.
Enter 1, 2, 3. There once was a PR king, Mike, whose career took a dizzying hike. He handled the police, made Elfman a beast, and gave punk some major new spike. He launched bands with flair and with sass.
Oh, wrong guy.
We'll start verse 2 again.
Oh, sorry, pal.
He launched bands with flair and with sass. Told Kraftwerk they'd truly kick ass. From Rush to the Bangles, he's wrangled all angles. This Gormley's got showbiz pizzazz. Ta-da!
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Boy, we've got it recorded here now.
We do, kind of effed up, but we'll send you the text anyway, so you can.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Put that with your clippings when you write your book. You see.
When I write the book. All right. Okay.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike.
Put
This
that
was
on the
lovely.
to-do list. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm just too lazy, but I'll try.
I don't think so. With all you've got going on, and
I wouldn't call you lazy.
lapdev.com and the Mike Gormley Show, wherever you get your podcast. Produced
Oh,
by-
I got and one quick thing, if we have a second.
Of course we do.
I'm started a while back working with a fellow named Gary Myrick. And Gary Myrick has a great success story along the way, but had disappeared. And he's back. And if you're in the LA area, he's at a club called Trip in Santa Monica on this Friday, the 27th.
Okay.
He's a tremendous guitarist. I work with Skunk Baxter, who's one of the best in the world, and Skunk likes his playing. So for me, that's enough. You know.
That's pretty good. I have not heard of Trip. Well, I'll have to check that out.
Okay.
Fantastic.
It's a little club, but it's fun.
No, well, that's, the cabin was a little pub, and look what happened there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, everybody can find Mike at lapdev.com or the Mike Gormley Show, produced by Evolve Entertainment Network, wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
We will see all of you lovely music lovers, and peace out. And we'll see you all of a sudden.
Thanks so much for asking me to come on. It was great to see both of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. God bless.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.